Welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is INX Prime Live. Remember, we are on your screens every single Monday to Friday between the hours of 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. Now, Born to Struggle is the title of the biography of anti-apartheid struggle icon Fatima Meer. Now, the book was authored by veteran journalist and author Arjumand Wajid. Now, the UK-based author kicks off her South African tour next week with launches planned for both Durban and Johannesburg, where she will actually be having something at the Nelson Mandela Foundation. Now, I am thrilled to welcome Arjumand Wajid, who joins me now via video link in Durban. Assalamu alaikum and welcome, Arjumand.
Wa alaikum assalam, and thank you for having me.
No, it's such a pleasure chatting to you. And again, thank you so much for chatting to us this evening. Now, I want to talk about the person that you actually wrote this book on, the biography on, and that is Fatima Meer. Now, we know that, she is very known and loved here in South Africa, but her story is not known very much outside the country. Was this your motivation behind writing this book?
Yes, and more than that, I felt that you're such an iconic figure and she made such a contribution to the liberation movement. Am I just correct? Her contributions should be recognized and acknowledged. Also, we became very close friends. Sorry about this.
No, that's fine.
So, yes, it was something that I asked her if I should do, or would you like me to write her biography? And she said yes. That was 2006 or 5, something like that. And so, yes, she's still not as well known outside South Africa as she should be, but hopefully this book will go a long way to correct that and remedy that, because the book is going to be distributed in UK, hopefully at some point in America, in Pakistan, and so on.
No, very, very excited, and I know a lot of people are excited here in South Africa, without a doubt. We were just speaking about the title of the book, right? And it is called Born to Struggle. Now, a lot of people love the title and everyone's very excited for it, but without giving away too much, are you able to tell us more about Fatima Meer's struggle credentials and how she got involved in the struggle against apartheid?
She was lucky to be part of a family, to be born in a family which is very progressive. Most relatives, her father, her uncle, her elder cousin, who later became her husband, they were all very active members of the Natal Indian Congress and later, obviously, ANC. And so this was a household which was like a hub of political activity. When she was a young girl, a teenager at that time, the India-Pakistan struggle was also going on, so that was also quite a subject to be discussed. So she grew up in that kind of atmosphere, and she basically, I think she was groomed, and that became a very natural direction that she took. And then she started actively doing this kind of community work, roughly almost at the age of 15, when there was a Bengal famine and she was raising funds for that. And then she got involved with Cato Manor riots, which were like anti-Indian riots, and she realized these tensions between the two communities, and that she made a mission of her life to basically clear the atmosphere, bring the two communities together, do as much as possible for the Black community and address the grievances that Black community had against Indians at the time. And this, which of course was the result of apartheid system, system very much aimed at dividing the communities and so on. And then later on, she went on to be part of, founder member of the Federation of South African Women. And she was banned for her activities from very large sort of part of her life. 3 times she was banned. Despite that, she continued her activities, at times being arrested for it. Later on, she went to prison. So all her life really was a struggle against apartheid and against oppression and so on. So she was, she earned her status in the society and became an icon, particularly for the younger generation, at a time, let's say in 80s and 70s and 80s, after the senior members of the struggle, like ANC leaders and the NIC leaders, a lot of them imprisoned on Robben Island and different prisons, and a lot of them had went into exile. So there was a kind of vacuum of leadership and activity, and she was really one who stood out to continue it. And she was, a very notable academic, highly respected and loved by her students, and her students included people like Steve Biko and Sats Cooper and other very prominent members of at the time, NIC and the Black members, Black Consciousness Movement. She engaged with them, she inspired them, she worked with them. So she stood out at that time, almost the single most prominent leader who was still involved and continued her activities against injustice, inequality, and served the community, particularly the underdogs, and so on.
Yeah, I love that. And again, thank you so much again for, showcasing and highlighting the type of person Fatima is in the book in particular, but also celebrating her. Now, we know that she was also a confidant of Nelson Mandela, and even authored his authorized biography, which is actually called Higher Than Hope. I just wanted to know, how have you managed to document this important fact when it comes to the biography of Fatima Meer?
Well, I have mentioned, this is one of her achievements. Basically, Ismail Meer, her husband, was a classmate of Nelson Mandela, and they got to know each other in Johannesburg at the university at Wits, where she was also a student for a year. And later on, when they got married, Nelson Mandela and other ANC leaders were regular visitors to their house in Umgeni Road. And so they became very close friends. Particularly Winnie, after Nelson Mandela's imprisonment, needed a lot of help and support, and Fatima Meer and other friends like her were those who she could depend on. And so over the years, and also the time when Winnie herself was banned as well, Fatima and Ismail were regular supporters of her and continued to keep an eye on her and help in any way they could. And so it came about, I think, during a conversation, during letters. Nelson Mandela used to write letters, obviously, to other friends outside as well, but Fatima and Ismail as well. And in one of those letters, she mentioned that, he should be writing a autobiography. And he said that was like, I can't remember the exact line, but it was something like that. It was an egotistic practice for those who want to seek fame, etc. But then she said, all right, how about me writing about a biography of yours? And he agreed to that. And it can't have been easy to write a biography of a person who's been in prison for years. You don't know him. You don't know what kind of person he is now. So it took her a long time, and she had to do a lot of work. She went to visit him in prison. In fact, the party government kept turning down her application to visit him. So in the end, I think Winnie Mandela gave her one of her visits, because number of visits were allocated. And so then she went to his homestead, his village, met his relatives and so on. So it was a labor of love. And she managed to have it published almost just before he was released.
Yeah, I'm very, very excited to definitely read this book. I think a lot of people are very excited as well. I know that some of the themes play such an important role, and one of the themes is that you emphasize the fact that Fatima was also, her activism as a South African Indian leader. Now, I wanted to know, looking at where we are today in South Africa, there's a lot of, there's quite a breakdown in terms of the bridge between, your older leadership and a lot of our young people that want to become leaders in the country, especially of Indian descent. Why is it so important that you emphasize this theme as well when it comes to Fatima?
Well, it was well known by the time I came to South Africa in '92. I had become aware of almost like disproportionately higher and important role of the Indian community in the liberation struggle. Looking at the proportion of their population and percentage of the population, they played an immensely important role. And looking at people like Ahmed Kathrada, who was so close to Nelson Mandela and Ismail Meer, Nelson Mandela often made made a quite a important issue of the fact that all these Muslim and Indian leaders were how much valuable their contribution was and how much he appreciated. He used to mention Ismail Meer, Ahmed Katrada, Maulvi Kachalia, and so on. So I had become aware of this element and this aspect of the liberation movement. So when I was coming here to South Africa the first time after Mandela's release in '92, I particularly wanted to look at their role and the details of how it went. And Ismail Meer was like my mentor and guide, and extremely generous with his time and advice. And he enabled me to get to know the Indian leaders, especially, and meet them and find out their contribution. And I thought it was a very important aspect that people should know about.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think it is such an important and vital piece of information. But, Arjumand, a lot of people are sending in a lot of questions and comments. People are very, very excited for this book and they can't wait to read it. But we're also getting a lot of comments and questions coming in about these different events that are going to be taking place, the launches, both in Durban as well as in Johannesburg. Maybe perhaps you can share with us more information about the launch that's going to be taking place in KZN, in Durban in particular, but also the one that's going to be happening at the Nelson Mandela Foundation here in Johannesburg.
Well, in Durban, Ike's Books are organizing the launch event on the 19th at their shop. And in Johannesburg, it's going to be a joint event organized by Mandela Foundation and Katrada Foundation, and that's taking place at Nelson Mandela Center on the 22nd.
Yes, that's very, very exciting. So I'm sure everyone will definitely make their way through to these two events. But just in closing, Arjumand, before we let you go, we are getting more questions coming in about the book itself. We do have a question from Nabil. Nabil wanted to know, what's the main message that someone can take once they actually read this book or this biography about Fatima Meer? What's the one message that will actually resonate with everyone?
I think one message is that there is this lady who stands out in her time of very, on one hand, coming from a very conservative Indian community where during her time, even the education was not that easy for Indian girls. And she stood out as a very courageous, very outspoken leader at a time when people were worried about their own liberty and their security. She was really outrageously courageous. I mean, she took so many risks that people thought, how could she do that? Their house was attacked. It was at one time their house was attacked with they were firing, and they barely managed to escape. Then there was satellite, people threw fire bombs at their house, and she was banned 3 times. She was arrested, and yet nothing discouraged her and nothing stopped her. And time like even today, we need personalities like her, icons, inspiration, and someone that we should not be forgotten.
Yeah, I love the way you speak about Fatima Meer, and we're definitely all very excited to read that biography. But again, Arjumand, thank you so much for joining us tonight on INX Prime Live.
Thank you for having me.
You're most welcome, guys. That is Arjumand Wajid, who is actually an author as well as a veteran journalist, just sharing with us more information about the launches happening both in Durban and at the Nelson Mandela Foundation in Johannesburg to be able to launch this incredible biography of Fatima Meer, and it is actually called Born to Struggle. So you guys can definitely either attend the launches, and if you don't attend it, you can still get the book and read it and let us know what you guys think as well. But on that note, we are going to take a quick ad break. We'll come right back.